All right, we're going to be doing a simple lighting tutorial here. First, I'm going to create some geometry from the poly modeling. I'm in the modeling flyout here, and I've got a plane here. I'm going to click on this. I'm going to hold down X to snap to grid so that I can create a perfectly square shape. We'll notice that it's 24 by 24. Then I'm going to hold down Shift and rotate it in a direction, and click on this one and hold down Shift. Move it, sorry, I'm moving it, and then I'm going to rotate it. And I'm going to rotate it, in this case, 90 degrees on the Z axis, which gives me that. And then I'm going to rotate this 90 degrees on the X axis, which will give me that. And now I've rotated both of these objects, but I want them to, be flush with the edges here, right? So, um, I could do this where I actually tap the D key. That lets me change the origin point or the 0, 0, 0 point, right, the axis. And then I'm going to hold the V key down and change the origin to the vertex down here. That snaps to vertex. I'll tap D again and do the same thing over here. Tap D, hold down V, move it here, tap D again. Now what that's allowed me to do is if I hold down V, I can snap to these vertices here and here. And now I've got this nice little room set up here. What you'll notice is that the face of this is facing the wrong direction. And that's because the normals are facing outward. And so what I'm going to do is go to Mesh Display and reverse the display of the vertex normal, or the face normal rather. And by reversing it, you'll see that I have some gray there as needed. Okay. Another approach here, I'm just going to hide these, would be to go to the edge with Object Symmetry Off. I'm going to click on these two and just hold down Shift and lift upward, and now I have a contiguous object or geometry that's there, right, as a room. Okay, and then I might take these 2 or 3 planes here and I might Shift right click and just bevel that edge. Now notice the fraction is set to 0.5. I probably want to reduce this, maybe down to something like a 0.05. And then I might want to increase the segments, right, which actually creates sort of a rounded corner there. If I take object mode off, you'll notice that it sort of softened the corner a little bit, made it kind of interesting. But we're going to focus now on putting some subjects into our scene. So I'm going to put a cube or rectangular prism in here. I'm going to put a pillar in the back, kind of like that. And then I'm going to take this cone and put it here. Tap G and do that a couple more times like this, just putting some objects in the scene to make it kind of interesting. But let's talk lighting. Okay, the lights are over here under rendering, and the rendering tab has a number of things including the camera, but we're going to be focusing on just point lights today. There are many other lights that we'll look at, but we want to focus first on point light. And this is just like as if you were holding a light bulb out in space, and you'll notice that when I clicked on point light, it floated straight to the 0, 0, 0 here on the grid. If I hit the W key, I can move it around, but you'll notice that in my viewport I don't actually see what the light is doing. So there are 2 very special buttons up here in the panel here that we have open. One of those is use all lights, meaning if I have a light in the scene, which can be seen over here in the outliner. If you don't have your outliner up, go to Windows and click on Outliner and it will show up right here. But if you click on this, you can see that it has properties that we'll go over in a minute. But I can't see how it's affecting the scene, so I'm going to click on this light bulb right here, kind of in the middle. And now as I move my light around, you can see how it's affecting things, right? I'm moving it around. And if you can't really tell from perspective, where your light is. That's why orthographic views are there. So I hit the space bar to toggle between those two, and I can move my light around in my scene. But you'll note these other views do not have how it's affecting, the light is affecting the scene. So I need to turn their light bulbs on as well. Right next to the light bulb, you'll see another button that allows you to see the shadows. So now I can see the shadows that are being produced by the light. Each one of these has a different way of displaying the view based on top, front, side, and of course perspective. If I want to create another point light, I could just hold down Shift and clone it. And now I have point light 2. And I've added more lights to my scene. So we might want to do something along the lines of this, where I'm going to raise this light up. It's a point light that's up here. If you look at it from the top view, it sits over here. Then I have another light here. And then you may want to light up the back of the scene. And in order to do that, I'm just going to hold down Shift and clone another light over here. And you can see lights are dancing all over the scene here. Okay, so if I was going to make some adjustments, I might want to have more of a dynamic outcome here. So I might actually click on this light here and look at under the channel box layer editor, all of the options that I have under point light shape, which includes color, RGB, intensity, and so on. Now intensity can be raised by a factor of some sort, and I may want to change the intensities of my different lights. Sometimes it can be difficult to get a hold of things over here in the scene, which is why the outliner is so valuable. I'm going to click on point light 2 and then reduce the intensity to 0.4, giving it a little bit more mood lighting or ambiance. I'm going to go over here and make this 0.3, and now you can see we have much more of a dramatic lighting outcome. I'm going to go back to point light 1 and move it around until I get some good value here that's descriptive of this geometry. Helps me to see what's going on. I might even increase its intensity more. But you can see that we're able to look at this scene and see the way in which lighting affects it. And of course, different materials and surfaces will be affected differently. But that is the basic setup of lights for setting up a scene. When I go up here to render, I can look at different rendering options. I'm going to go with Maya software, and then I'm going to click on this button here, which is render the current frame, and this gives you an idea of what your outcome will be. Alright, so that's the basics of using the point light. Other lights include the spotlight, which is exactly what it sounds like it is. It has a direction, and as you see me move it around here, you can see that it looks just like it sounds, a spotlight. I can move it around this way. Other lights include a directional light, which sounds similar to the spotlight, but it actually doesn't have a cone or a penumbra or any of these other things, at least not in the same way that the spotlight does. Then you, of course, have other lights next to that, which include an area light and a volume light, things that we'll cover at a later time. That's it, a brief tutorial on lighting.